Daemon steps down off the bed in a single stride, and gently lifts his hat off the bedpost as if it were an infant child, and brushes off a stray centipede leg. This may not be the best place to rest our heads after all. And he starts walking back toward the narrow corridor they were in before. Lucian triumphantly steps forward.
Then let us proceed,
and shuffles out of the room at a surprising speed for a man of his advanced years. Aru grumbles in agreement and follows, purposefully crushing charred insects beneath her boots. Blossom wanders behind while nibbling on a rationed pickled egg for his breakfast. Ains steps off the bed gently and lifts his arm up to prevent anything touching his burning hand. Donnie watches curiously.
What you staring at?
Ains growls, slightly offended.
Can you, barbecue with that? 'Cause I have this amazing grilled fish recipe.
Donnie smiles. Ains rolls his eyes and heads out of the room.
Hey, wait, what about roasted lettuce? Man, that's delicious.
The party cautiously makes their way back through the underground corridor in order to take the passage Blossom recommended previously. An echo stretches into the distance. The sound of chanting continues in the darkness. Eventually, the tunnel reveals 3 thresholds ahead. Daemon leans into one of the rooms and finds 2 large sarcophagi. Carved into the first is the name Gustav Durst, and the other Elizabeth Durst. On the opposite side of the corridor are 2 smaller but similar-looking graves with the names Rosevalda Durst and Thornbolt Durst, carved into the stone. A place of rest. I'll bring their bones. Daemon makes his way back into the upper house. Maybe this will bring some peace.
Bone collecting time.
Aru smiles and joins him. They spend the next few hours bringing the family's bones down from upstairs. Daemon stands over the graves and gives a quiet prayer for each of the family members, evoking the protection of the local godly patron, the Morning Lord, which he discovered previously in the library. May his light abolish the evil within this place, so that you may find peace. Blossom carefully puts a small yellow doll on top of Rose's grave and gives it a gentle pat.
There you go. You play.
He then silently steps over to Thorn's grave and searches his pockets before revealing the ear of corn he found on his way into town, which he places on the lid and pets it softly.
Sorry, all Blossom have.
He then bows his head and forcefully coughs to get everyone's attention. Daemon bows his head in prayer again. Blossom states with great sympathy his own eulogy for the children.
You died. Oh no. Bye-bye.
Before walking off whistling a happy tune, Daemon glares at him in disbelief. Donnie watches as the detective carries the bones of Gustav into the crypt. He waits until he leaves before picking up Gustav's tibia and giving it a brief lick, then making a note in his book. I don't think we found Elizabeth's bones, Daemon pants. Need to check her grave to see if she's in there first. He leans against the wall and takes a swig from his water skin. Donnie nods and lifts the lid of Elizabeth's grave with ease. He quickly regrets doing that when centipedes crawl over his arms and he flings the stone lid to one side with a shrieking yelp. Ains rushes into the room hearing Donnie's cry and sees the floor moving.
Oh, not again!
The wizard instinctively throws a firebolt into the grave while screaming, causing the insects to rush out even faster. Aru grabs Ains and rapidly shifts him to one side.
Mine,
she aggressively states before she slams her axe down sideways, crushing many of the centipedes flat.
Stand back!
Donnie shouts, powering up a spell. Aru clings to the threshold as he drops another firebolt at his feet and quickly retreats into his shell. The centipedes are cooked by the flames. He pokes his head out cautiously.
Are they gone?
He asks, his voice slightly shaking.
Think you got 'em, mate.
Ains states from the other side of the doorway.
Good, that's enough creepy crawlies for my lifetime.
Donnie's limbs emerge out of his shell and he brushes off the insect parts whilst leaning into Elizabeth's grave, only to find it empty.
Of course, that'd be too easy.
Daemon wanders further down the corridor through the last threshold. He can see a dimly lit room with a large table near the entrance, with the sound of cracking and crunching under his feet. He slowly peers down and finds old bones with rotten scraps of flesh still attached. Inspecting the bones without touching, he determines they are all human, and they were definitely gnawed upon.
Is this just a house of bones?
He complains as he tries to avoid the rest of the remains. Donnie impatiently pushes past him when he sees the table with bowls and plates on it. He licks his lips, hoping to find some old dungeon snacks. Daemon shouts out to him.
Donnie, don't wander off.
I'll get him. Ains sighs and disappears around the corner chasing the turtle, but becomes distracted when he spots something shine within a dark alcove. He moves closer to peer into the shadow, only for a snake-like creature to snap at him with its sharp beak, its face surrounded by wiggling, slimy tentacles. Ains jumps back, managing to slide along the outside of the wall.
Geezers, little help would be nice.
Daemon whips his eyes over and they grow wide.
That would be a grick.
He aims his crossbow into the alcove.
Grick, you want friend? Blossom befriend?
Blossom opens his arms, inviting the creature closer.
Yeah, sure that'll go down well.
Daemon groans and closes his eyes, wondering how he got here.
Oh, to have those battle-worn brutes from the moment's respite fighting by my side. But no, I have been dealt different cards, it seems.
Just as he returns from his thoughts, Blossom is moving in front of the alcove.
Hello, Grick. Cha-cha-cha.
He reaches out towards the creature, which aggressively hisses and snaps at the end of his finger.
Oh, naughty Grick.
He throws a firebolt into its den and steps towards the opposite outside wall to Ains. The grick strikes out from the flames and swiftly grazes Blossom on the leg.
No, bad dog.
However, its true target is Ains, as it flings itself in his direction. The drow struggles to push the serpent body away. Its eager tentacles begin to salivate and cling to the back of his head.
Kill it! Kill it now!
He squeals. Daemon lines up a shot and fires. The bolt slices into the belly of the grick, but it continues to snap and pull on the rogue's hood. Ains lets out a muffled cry before he grabs its smooth-scaled neck with his embered hand, which begins to sizzle its way through the flesh. The grick flails in pain and releases its tentacles. It then attempts to flee, but slithers into a wall. At least, it thought it was a wall, as the grick peers up with its black beady eyes to see a towering, blood-smeared orc grinning with a great axe, which falls against its face, leaving a pile of grick guts on the floor. Ains breathes deeply, wiping saliva from his cheeks. He sits down at the old table where Donnie is obliviously searching for food within an old pot. Aru props a heavy hand on Ains' slim shoulder. He wearily looks upward to see an extremely ecstatic orc.
Finally, blood!
Her bright yellow eyes beaming, and from her hand a soft glow emerges and Ains feels revitalized.
Now you get the next one.
Donnie waddles ahead into the next room.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm starved.
The turtle stops. The vague chanting that had become commonplace seemed to be significantly louder here. The ground rhythmically trembles under his claws, and down a dim corridor a powerful stench of death invades his nostrils. 3 ghouls groan and slowly shamble toward him.
Pick up your spell books, boys. We got company.
What? The turtle wanders off in a bone-ridden cellar and now is in trouble? I am the shock.
Ains gives a sly smile and stands next to him, readying his rapier.
I haven't wandered off. I can still see you.
Donnie remarks, annoyed at the accusation. The oncoming ghouls take a deep sniff of the air and with dead white eyes stare directly at Donnie, who gives a frightful shriek and thrusts out his claws. A translucent, shimmering force expands out before him, creating a magical shield, and from the other erupts hungry flames which grasp at the ghoul's flesh. But with their next meal in sight, they refuse to back down. Ains cuts into grey skin with his blade. The ghoul growls and attempts to swipe at him with spiked fingernails, but the drow swiftly dodges.
Blossom, help!
The enigmatic orc merrily approaches and forces his spoon staff into the ghoul's eye socket. It grimaces, clutching its face before collapsing dead. Its friends clamber over the corpse as if it wasn't there, their eyes fixated on Donnie, drooling through cracked teeth from chewing bones. They attempt to grab him, but their nails scratch along his hard shell. Ains stabs with his rapier, piercing a ghoul's heart, but the sword embeds itself between its ribs and he struggles to remove it. Blossom, who has now embraced the poking technique, aims for the eyes again.
Poke, poke.
But misses and whacks it on the side of the head. Aru pulls out her whip and lashes at the last ghoul, which wraps around its throat. She fiercely grins as she begins to pull tighter. Foul creature scratches his nails along the wall, chomping his teeth, before the leather strap cuts through the skin and his head falls to the floor. Aru smiles at the sight of carnage.
That's the stuff.
Ains desperately pulls his rapier from the chest cavity of the corpse. He cleans it on his cloak. It's all right, darling. I got you. Something sparkles and catches his eye down the junction of the corridor. What's that? He takes a step forward.
Don't wander off.
Donnie mockingly flaps his arms at Ains. The drow frowns and attempts to push him to one side, but his slim arms are no match for the small but very heavy turtle. Donnie grins mischievously, firmly rooted to the spot.
Right, that's enough horsing around.
Daemon barks authoritatively and places his hands on their shoulders.
This is not the time, nor is it the place.
His eyes swipe over the dripping walls of this subterranean maze as he slowly continues his path.
Go ahead then.
Ains offers the way to Donnie.
Dude, I insist.
Donnie mimics the gesture.
Oh, too kind.
Blossom marches between them, his footsteps echoing down the corridor. Ains and Donnie delay their childish dispute and proceed side by side. Down the narrow stone tunnel is a large room. Multiple skeletons shackled to the walls come into view. Daemon sighs.
Once again I've come face to face with death. It wounds my heart to think about the torture these folks endured.
Then don't.
Donnie shrugs.
This is not us.
Daemon scowls at the turtle's callous attitude, before observing the rest of the room. A strange wooden statue of a thin man wearing a long flowing cloak. His left hand rests on the head of a snarling wolf, and with his right he lifts a smoky crystal orb. Ains instantly recognizes the man from the coins he acquired earlier.
I know that bloke. He's on the money. This is Strahd.
A shrine to their god, perhaps?
Daemon rhetorically questions.
A pathetic attempt. Not enough bones.
Aru huffs, staring up at the statue. Daemon sighs, shaking his head in disapproval, trying his best to keep his opinion to himself. Instead, he asks,
So, Aru, how did you come to serve such a fierce deity like the Doombringer?
Aru throws her eyes towards the detective and purses her lips uncomfortably.
My mentor, Moog. He's a bounty hunter. Took me off the streets. Gave me a home and a purpose.
But isn't the Doombringer a god of vengeance?
Daemon remarks, recalling his adolescent studies.
That is my purpose.
She aggressively growls.
His powers are useful to my cause.
I see. Daemon disconcertingly rubs his chin, deciding against pushing for more information. Ains wanders alongside him.
They must be dedicated. This is high quality craftsmanship right here.
Ains peers closer at the statue.
Mahogany, maybe.
Blossom notices how the torches in front of the statue cast Ains' shadows along the floor as he approaches. But strangely, more shadows spread outward, as if there were multiple invisible people standing next to him.
Come out now. No hiding.
He calls out, causing Ains to whip around and see the team of shades along the floor next to his own shadow.
Well, that can't be good.
Daemon and Aru back away slowly, observing the figures from afar, just as Donnie becomes captivated with the glass orb. It appears to be filled with grey clouds that whirl like a storm inside. He purrs and climbs up the arm of the statue and gently presses his tongue against the orb. Aru grabs a hold of Donnie.
Get down!
But she is too late. The shadows rise out of the stone floor, surrounding Blossom and Ains in front of the statue. The sound of chanting intensifies. Lucian gives a brief smirk and leans against the wall next to a skeleton.
This should be entertaining.
These look familiar.
Aru tilts her head and readies her axe, glaring at the iridescent forms now floating above the floor.
The ones from the memory.
Daemon abrasively confirms, backing towards the entranceway. Ain swipes at one of the shadows with his rapier. It passes through, leaving it seemingly unaffected. A panicked expression appears on his face.
What? How are we supposed to stop him?
He stealthily manages to slip past without grabbing the attention of the shadows.
Divine light hurts him. We need magic.
Aru runs her hand along the blade of her axe.
Doombringer, give me power.
Red light surges from her hand and infuses into the axe, giving it a crimson glow. She smashes her axe into a shadow, and with an acidic hiss, it breaks apart and disintegrates. Two of the shadows hover over Blossom.
Blossom no touch orb.
He squeals and frantically points at Donnie. The shadows descend. They push their arms into the disguised Pipsqueak. He feels cold tendrils caressing his heart.
Let go of the little dude!
Donnie desperately flails his staff at a shadow, but it goes through its form. Blossom reaches towards the wizard.
Help, Blossom!
He croaks. Aru roars and leaps towards one of the shadows, slamming down her axe along its arms. Red light burns through its dark translucent body, but it manages to remain intact, digging its tendrils back into Blossom, who goes limp in midair. Donnie throws a firebolt, but the shadow dodges the flying flames. He could swear it began laughing. From behind the statue, 3 new shadows bleed into the stone floor and ascend out of the ground around Blossom. They push their shade tentacles into his body. Aru and Donnie take a step back towards the door, helplessly witnessing the last moments of their comrade. Blossom feels his mind slipping into darkness. A voice booms.
Not today, champion!
Blossom's eyes open wide. Sharp blue points pierce through the darkness. He takes in a deep breath and lets out a scream as if he just awoke from a horrendous nightmare. Blue light explodes out from his body and floods the entire room. The shades screech and remove their arms to shield themselves from the light, but their forms hiss and they are consumed. The rest of the party avert their gaze and huddle by the doorway. A few seconds pass and the light dims. There is no sign of the shadows. Aru turns to see Blossom laying on the floor, in front of the statue. She cautiously walks over and gently kicks him with her boot. He immediately starts snoring.